Welcome to JK Tells a Story, where real-life dramas unfold. Sit back and enjoy today's tale. I'm Marcus Thompson, and I come from a family where expectations ran high. My dad, Robert, was a successful corporate lawyer. My mom, Linda, worked as an RN at the local hospital, and being the fourth kid meant I was supposed to follow the family tradition. At 18, I made a decision that rocked our family to the core when I announced I didn't want to go to college after high school graduation. It was like an earthquake had hit our house. My usually talkative parents were speechless at first, then did everything to make life difficult for me. In the Thompson family, college admission was mandatory for all children. My parents secretly applied to 6 top colleges and universities without my knowledge. Surprisingly, I was accepted into all of them, putting additional pressure on me to choose one. The only family member who didn't push me to pursue higher education was my grandfather, Pop Thompson. I'd been working with him during school holidays since I was 13. Pop was a legend in the automotive restoration business around Columbus, Ohio. He'd buy beat-up classic cars from elderly owners, restore them to pristine condition, and sell them for serious profit. A few months before graduating from high school, Pop and I bought 2 project cars, a 67 Mustang and a 70 Camaro. Throughout the summer, I coordinated work with mechanics, body shop specialists, custom painters, and parts suppliers to ensure every detail was perfect. Shortly before Labor Day, I successfully sold the Camaro for nearly $15,000 profit, which I split with Pop. While my peers were working for minimum wage at retail jobs, I was deep in the car restoration world and eventually flipped 3 more classics the following summer. Pop strongly recommended that I start financing my own projects but still agreed to co-sign when needed. After summer's end, I transferred 25% of my profits to Pop. I had a substantial amount of cash left, which most 17-year-olds would envy. Despite being an excellent student who loved to study, deep down I understood that college wasn't my path. In the end, I came to a compromise with my parents. We decided that after graduation, I would take a gap year during which I would apply to colleges and make a decision with the whole family. While my friends were preparing for their first year of college and working part-time summer jobs, I made a different decision. I bought a used Ford pickup truck with low mileage, a basic cell phone, and started a company called Thompson Custom Auto. I reached out to every car dealer willing to listen to me, detailing the types of classic cars I wanted to buy. I promised to use them as purchasing agents for recommended vehicles and as sales agents after the restorations were completed. It was a bold move, but my future ultimately depended on this decision. That's how I met the sisters Ashley, Brittany, and their network. They were in their 20s and were ambitious car salespeople, having recently graduated from college and working at various Ford, Chevy, and specialty dealerships around Columbus. They contacted me when I was working on 2 restoration projects. One day, Ashley called me and informed me about a potential vehicle in Westerville that seemed to fit my requirements. Showing a sense of urgency inherited from Pop, I agreed to check out the car when the opportunity presented itself. I knew I had to be ready to take it. I arranged to meet Ashley in 90 minutes at a modest ranch house where a beautiful 1969 Dodge Charger sat under a tarp in the garage. Ashley informed me that the car belonged to an elderly man who had passed away, and his children on the West Coast were eager to sell the vehicle as soon as possible to settle their inheritance. Although the car was in decent condition mechanically, it needed significant bodywork and interior restoration. "What do you think they'll agree to?" I asked. Ashley thought the car would sell for close to $12,000. Feeling confident, I decided to offer $10,500 in cash. I asked for 5 days for a thorough inspection and promised to close the deal within 5 days after receiving the mechanic's report if there were no major issues. Ashley was delighted with this offer, so we returned to her dealership, drafted and signed the purchase agreement, and sent it to the seller's agent. To our delight, the offer was accepted. After receiving the inspector's report, which didn't contain any unexpected problems, we completed the transaction a week later. "Let's celebrate," Ashley suggested as we left the title office. Since we lived less than 2 miles apart, she suggested we go for a drink at her beautifully decorated third-floor apartment in downtown Columbus. After pouring 2 glasses of Merlot, we silently made a toast before taking a sip. "I hope you don't mind if we find alternative ways to celebrate," she said with a smile. Pop had shared valuable insights with me about the automotive industry, including the fact that female sales representatives often preferred to work with contractors who frequently bought and sold multiple vehicles. He jokingly said that if he were younger and not married, he would definitely take advantage of all the networking opportunities the business offered. Ashley leaned over and kissed me on the lips. When she saw the smile on my face, she leaned in again, making the kiss more assertive. Holding a glass of wine in one hand, I admired her athletic figure as she moved closer to me. We spent time getting to know each other better before Ashley pulled away with a wide grin. What followed was an intimate evening together. Despite being only 18 years old, I had already gained a fair share of romantic experience, though most had been awkward and unsatisfying encounters with high school classmates. In addition, I had developed relationships with 3 women in the car sales industry. A 43-year-old married woman, in particular, had played an important role in teaching me about mature relationships and had significantly shaped my early adult development. Ashley, her sister Brittany, and the next 5 years of my life all played a significant role in my personal growth. When I shared my financial success with my parents after the first year, they recognized my achievements. Despite initially being disappointed with my decision to skip college, they saw my passion for the automotive business and sincerely supported me. By the second year, I was buying and flipping 12 to 15 classic cars annually and was actively looking for commercial garage spaces with multiple bays. I rented workshop space as needed and expanded the business into custom modification work for local car enthusiasts. Managing multiple restoration projects became overwhelming, and I soon realized I needed professional help to avoid late-night calls about parts delays and scheduling conflicts. I hired an automotive project management company that monitored the restoration work and solved all the logistical issues that arose. Ashley and Brittany both got married within 2 months of each other, and I was invited to both weddings. I thought our previous relationships, which had included some complex arrangements, were in the past. But when I turned 24, Ashley invited me to dinner with their husbands and their younger sister Sarah. Sarah was a recent college graduate who had been teaching elementary school in the Columbus area for a year. She had attended Ohio State University on an academic scholarship. She was stunning, taller than her sisters at about 130 pounds. She was simply beautiful with auburn hair and bright green eyes. Her athletic figure was accentuated by her long, slender legs and graceful movements. But what really captivated me was her personality. She was intelligent, sincere, and had an infectious laugh. Despite being surrounded by her sisters and their husbands, I was thrilled to get to know her over drinks and dinner. My excitement increased when she agreed to let me drive her home to her parents' house. As we drove to a Starbucks, I couldn't help but feel grateful for the opportunity to spend more time with her. When Sarah suggested finding a quiet place to talk privately for the first time, we bought drinks and settled down at a secluded table. "Look, Marcus," she began, "you seem like a really nice guy, and under different circumstances, I think I'd like to get to know you better." "I'd like to get to know you better too," I replied. "What's bothering you?" Sarah expressed concern about her sisters, whom I had known for many years and who, in her opinion, were unfaithful to their husbands. She asked how this would affect our possible relationship and directly asked if I had ever been involved with either of them. Sarah made her conditions clear. If we were going to date, her sisters would be completely off limits. I agreed to her terms and also admitted that while I wasn't inexperienced, I only developed serious relationships with people I genuinely cared about. Despite this, Sarah and I decided to start dating. On the fourth date, I invited her to a private dinner at my place, which she surprisingly agreed to attend. When I picked her up from her parents' house, I noticed she was taken aback when I pulled into the driveway behind my house. I had moved out of my apartment into an old property that I inherited from my grandparents, who had passed away within 3 weeks of each other many years earlier. They had been incredibly generous, leaving their children and grandchildren with significant property acquired over a lifetime. Now the house, large garage complex, and 23 acres of land in a small rural town 20 minutes from Columbus belonged to me. The property had been Pop's original automotive repair shop and included the farmhouse where my grandparents had lived. There were fruit trees and vegetable gardens that I leased to a local farmer to generate income. After much thought, I decided to renovate both the old farmhouse and the massive garage complex. The renovation took 2 years, and the result was a beautiful house with a traditional farm exterior and a modern, open interior. The garage complex was also completely renovated. I turned it into a spacious restoration facility with concrete floors, hydraulic lifts, and professional-grade equipment. I created a gym in one corner and converted the second-floor office space into elegant headquarters for Thompson Custom Auto. In fact, the office served as my personal command center since I was still essentially a one-man operation. My business model was to buy, restore, and sell classic automobiles. I outsourced the specialized work to trusted mechanics and used car dealers, lawyers, financiers, and accountants to handle operations. As a solo entrepreneur, I gave Sarah a grand tour that left her impressed. The grilled salmon, asparagus, and salad that I served for dinner seemed to impress her as well. We enjoyed our meal on my patio, sipping wine and chatting until the candles burned down. "Can I ask you something?" I said. Sarah nodded eagerly and replied, "Of course. I really like spending time together, and I want to see you more often," I confessed. Sarah smiled and replied, "I'm not interested in dating anyone else either. Would you agree to an exclusive relationship?" The smile slowly faded from Sarah's face. My heart sank when Sarah hesitated and replied, "I need time to think." But then her smile slowly returned as she laughed and exclaimed, "I've been thinking about this long enough. It's time to take the next step." She moved onto my lap and kissed me. It took us almost 45 minutes to make our way to my bedroom on the second floor of the house. All this time we were embracing and getting to know each other more intimately. When we finally settled into bed together, I realized that at that moment, I was the happiest man in the world. I admit, at first I was worried that I would end up comparing Sarah to her more experienced sisters and that our relationship might be disappointing. But after a night filled with passion and genuine connection, I realized that Sarah was the right choice for me. She brought the same enthusiasm to our physical relationship as her sisters had to theirs, but she also wanted something exclusive and committed. Shortly after Sarah and I got engaged, her father Robert invited me to meet for a beer. Although we had always been friendly, I felt there was some underlying tension between us. I knew the reason: my lack of higher education. The next day, Robert and I sat down for a serious conversation. Wasting no time, he got straight to the point. Robert expressed his support for me but stressed the importance of Sarah and me signing a prenuptial agreement. He mentioned he hadn't discussed it with Sarah yet, but assured me he would definitely do so. Then he placed a manila folder on the table containing a concise 2-page prenuptial agreement. It stated that in the event of divorce, each party would retain the property they had brought into the marriage. Sarah would keep all assets gained from her current and future career, and I would keep all assets of my automotive business. If we had children, the court would determine child support amounts, and each of us would be required to contribute $5,000 annually to college funds. Such an agreement seemed fair and uncomplicated. I assured Robert that I didn't foresee any problems, but I wanted my lawyer to review the agreement. I promised to give an answer within a week. Sarah and I tied the knot at the end of her second year of teaching. My wife and I spent a luxurious honeymoon in the Caribbean, visiting several beautiful islands. It was during this vacation that we conceived our first child, Emma, who was born 9 months after our wedding. Just 16 months later, our second daughter Olivia was born, and 2.5 years after that, our youngest, Sophia. Despite the difficulties associated with raising 3 small children, we were mostly satisfied with life. In addition to her teaching job, Sarah decided to continue her education by earning a master's degree in education and a school administrator certificate. It was a stressful time for both of us, but our careers pulled us in different directions. During these 3 years, my business flourished. Thanks to the internet, I shifted my company's focus from complete classic car restoration to buying distressed collector vehicles throughout the Midwest, including Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, and Illinois. Thanks to the huge amount of information available online, I was able to find attractive projects and conduct thorough research before making any investments. I decided to buy classic cars and quickly sell them to individuals who wanted to do their own restorations. This practice is known in the automotive industry as car flipping. Although compared to traditional full restoration methods, I didn't make as large a profit on each transaction. I could handle significantly more volume, 75 to 100 deals per year. Along with my car flipping business, I also operated restoration services across 18 different garage bays, handling approximately 124 automotive projects at various stages of completion. Due to my reputation in the industry, I also became a partner in an investment group that provided loans to other automotive entrepreneurs, positioning myself as a leading company in the Midwest region. The most significant change for me and my company was the reduction in daily workload. Whereas I used to work 60 hours a week, constantly moving between restoration projects and searching for new opportunities, my new responsibilities required only 25 to 30 hours weekly. This allowed me to spend more time with my family, which I truly treasured. On a typical workday, I would wake up at 4 a.m. to work out for an hour, then prepare breakfast for my beloved wife and children before kissing them goodbye and watching the children board the school bus. I also made sure to prepare healthy homemade lunches for them. From 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., I focused on work. I talked with car dealers about new flipping opportunities, reviewed reports from financing companies, and handled various business details. Most days I managed to finish work early enough to attend my children's after-school activities. I coached their sports teams, took them to dance classes, helped with homework, and cooked hearty dinners for the family. I felt like the happiest person in the world, combining a successful career with the proud title of Mr. Mom. At the same time, my wife Sarah decided to change her profession. After leaving the classroom, she moved into school administration, starting as assistant principal of a middle school. She quickly rose to principal of an elementary school, then took the position of assistant principal of a high school. Just 6 years later, she was promoted to assistant superintendent of our school system. Despite the benefits of a shorter working day for me, Sarah's workload increased significantly. She was required to attend numerous evening sports and school events, as well as city council meetings and board of education sessions. Sarah's passion for her work and the impact she had on our community didn't allow me to complain. Instead, I was happy to take on additional household responsibilities. Despite our busy schedules, Sarah and I always found time for each other, both emotionally and physically. By our 12th wedding anniversary, we were maintaining an intimate relationship 3 or 4 times a week. The only obstacle in our relationship arose in the 3rd year of marriage. Sarah and I were celebrating Valentine's Day together at our favorite local restaurant. As we were enjoying dessert, Sarah hesitantly brought up a subject, urging me to keep an open mind. Feeling slightly annoyed by her words, I asked, "When haven't I been open-minded with you?" Sarah rolled her eyes and expressed concern that I might be upset. Despite the fact that I had booked a table at our favorite restaurant and presented her with a diamond pendant for the occasion, Sarah seemed hesitant to share her thoughts. "Do you think this is the right moment to bring up something potentially sensitive?" I asked. "Come on, Marcus," she began. "There's a small chance this might bother you." I interrupted her before Sarah could continue her explanation. "Just tell me what's on your mind." Sarah stared at me in silence for a while, then spoke up. "Ashley and Brittany go on a 5-day Las Vegas trip every spring. They choose dates that coincide with spring break at my school. I'd like to go this year." I grinned and replied, "Why would that upset me? That sounds like a great idea. Where are we going?" Sarah's initial smile turned to concern as she explained, "No, you don't understand. We're planning a girls' week." I maintained eye contact with Sarah while taking 2 small sips of wine. Putting the glass down, I asked, "What exactly are you trying to ask me?" Sarah looked confused and replied, "I don't understand your question." "You started by asking if you could ask me a question," I continued. "What are you asking me?" After a moment's thought, Sarah finally said, "Well, I guess I'm asking if you don't mind if I go." My smile widened as I answered, "It's simple. No, I'm against you going, and I'm surprised you're even asking. What's wrong with me spending time with my sisters?" Sarah's annoyance was obvious, and I was stunned. I shook my head and reminded her, "As you know, Ashley and Brittany are serial cheaters. They were like that when we started dating 5 years ago. As you've noticed, they're both single now after divorcing their spouses. Your sisters seem to attract trouble, and you know it. That's why you're hesitant about going on a trip without me, because you don't trust yourself around them." "Is it because you don't trust me?" "That's not the point. You wanted to know if I was okay with you going on a week-long Las Vegas trip with your messy sisters to party and hang out by pool decks in bikinis. It doesn't work for me, and it never will." Sarah took a moment to collect her thoughts, then said, "You can't stop me from going." "Once again, dear, this isn't about that. We're discussing my feelings about you abandoning your family to vacation with 2 shameless sisters. I really wish you would stop calling them messy. I wish they weren't like that." Before we could continue the conversation, the waiter approached our table and asked how satisfied we were with the dessert. After confirming it was delicious, she mentioned that the final course would be a glass of their famous plum wine and asked if she could bring it to us. Before Sarah could answer, I intervened. "No thanks," I said, taking my credit card from my wallet. I handed it to the server. "Please process the payment, include a 20% tip, and bring me the receipt to sign." Sarah was visibly annoyed. She raised her voice and demanded, "We're not staying for wine." Turning to the waiter, she added, "We'd like the check now, thank you." I had a feeling the waiter sensed that despite giving my wife a beautiful pendant, I wouldn't be receiving any affection at the end of our evening. Smiling at him, I said, "Actually, bring my wife some wine and pour me a glass." After the waiter processed my card, I told him to return it to my wife and call a taxi. The waiter's eyes widened in surprise when I casually threw my napkin on the table and went to get my jacket. After starting the car, I looked at my watch and gave Sarah 3 minutes to pay the bill and meet me in the parking lot. Surprisingly, she made it in just under 2 minutes, but it was clear from her expression that she was furious. As she got into the car, she scolded me, warning me never to put her in that position again. I drove in silence for half a mile before responding. During our conversation, You said I couldn't stop you from going away for a week with your troublemaking sisters. In that case, you can't stop me from embarrassing you in public whenever I want. Sarah was stunned by my words because I had never spoken to her like this before. Wisely, she remained silent for the rest of our drive home. When I parked the car by the garage complex, she headed for the house while I went up to my office. I was halfway up the stairs when I heard Sarah call out, "We haven't finished talking yet. Go inside now." I turned around and replied sternly, "Don't ever try to control me again." With that, I slammed the office door, leaving her standing in shock with her jaw dropped. In the weeks that followed, our house became tense and cold, and for several nights I slept in my office. As Sarah's departure date approached, she finally came to my office and asked if we could talk. "Of course," I replied, wanting to listen to her. I gestured to a chair and politely asked, "Please sit down." Sarah looked at me intently and said slowly, "I don't want to leave while you're mad at me." I replied calmly, "There's an easy way to improve my mood." Taking a deep breath, Sarah declared, "Marcus, I'm going on this Vegas trip. That's final." We sat in silence for a while before I asked, "Can I share a few thoughts?" Sarah nodded, giving me permission to speak. With a heavy heart, I confessed, for the first time in our relationship, I'm worried about the state of our marriage. For the first time, I'm concerned that your actions might lead to the breakup of our family. That's not fair, Marcus. Do you really believe I'll cheat on you during this trip? Right now, I believe you have no intention of cheating. But when you're with your sisters, drinking and partying, surrounded by attractive people in that environment, things can easily get out of control, especially when two of them are known for their behavior. Sarah, you know I'm not wrong. Sarah blushed slightly. I continued, expressing my concern. I'm not just worried about physical intimacy. Will you dance with other men? Hold hands? Let someone apply sunscreen on your body by the pool? Marcus, you're overreacting. I don't plan on doing any of this. Even if I did, I don't think these things are that serious, Sarah replied. I noticed that my expression made Sarah uncomfortable, and I asked if she would do any of the above. She replied that a married woman shouldn't engage in such behavior with men. At the same time, she added that if mistakes were made under the influence of alcohol, this shouldn't automatically lead to divorce. I shook my head in disappointment and expressed my thoughts, stating that we continued to go in circles in this conversation. I stressed that she hadn't taken into account my strong emotions and concerns about this trip. I warned her that if I discovered any inappropriate behavior on her part, I wouldn't consider her feelings. I would always put the well-being of myself and my daughters first, even if it meant considering divorce. It's hard to believe that divorce is even being brought up in our conversation. The fact that your decision to vacation brought us here is just shocking. Look, I've accepted that you're going on this trip, although I'm obviously not happy about it. I hope you and your sisters have a great time, but I need you to be aware of my concerns and understand that if you do something inappropriate and I find out about it, there will be consequences. I won't hesitate to show you the door, I said firmly. I was stunned when tears cascaded down Sarah's face. She jumped up from her chair, walked to the door of my office, and announced over her shoulder, I don't intend to do anything wrong. On the day Sarah left, we gathered at the kitchen table. Our delicious waffle breakfast sat mostly untouched. Sarah asked about the girls' plans for the week. When the kitchen clock struck 8 in the morning, Sarah looked at me and said, It's time to leave. I told Ashley we'd pick her up at 8:30 a.m. and Brittany at 9 a.m. You're taking us to the airport, right? I have conference calls scheduled for 8:30 a.m., 9 a.m., and 9:45 a.m. I need to be in my office, I replied. Stunned by my reaction, she asked, What's wrong with you? What kind of husband doesn't take his wife to the airport? As I headed toward the kitchen exit, I replied, the kind of husband who doesn't support this vacation. The next 9 years passed quickly. Emma turned 13, Olivia turned 11, and Sophia turned 8. I continued to embrace my role as Mr. Mom, the main caregiver of our children. Sarah appreciated my efforts, which allowed her to succeed in her career as an administrator. I was proud of her achievements while enjoying the strong bond that had been established with my 3 daughters. It was the last Friday in April. Sarah had recently returned from her 9th spring Las Vegas trip with her sisters. Putting my phone on silent mode, I quietly connected to a conference call, planning solely to listen, not participate. Standing at the open office window, I was enjoying the pleasant spring breeze when Sarah's car suddenly pulled into the driveway, followed closely by Brittany's car. Sarah quickly jumped out of her car, followed by Brittany and Ashley from the other vehicle. Brittany immediately asked, "What's so urgent?" Sarah reassured her sister and suggested talking in the kitchen so the kids wouldn't overhear. Not wanting to risk being discovered, I turned off my phone and switched to our home security app on my mobile device. I activated the kitchen camera and saw the women enter through the back door and take their seats at the table. While pouring wine for her sisters, Sarah declined when asked if she wanted a drink. "I can't. I'm taking antibiotics," she explained. Worried, Brittany asked, "What's the matter with you?" Sarah hesitated before admitting, "One of the guys I was with infected me with chlamydia." Shocked, Brittany asked, "Did you give it to Marcus?" Sarah emphatically denied it. "No, he always gets upset when I come back from Vegas. We've been sleeping in separate rooms for several weeks now." "What if your doctor tells Marcus?" Ashley asked. "I don't think so," she replied. "I visited a clinic in Albany and paid cash. I told them I wasn't married and had only been intimate with strangers during a recent Vegas trip. I gave the clinic detailed information about the hotels and the people I was involved with. The authorities will try to find the person responsible for transmitting the infection." Depressed, I closed the app and headed to my bookshelf, where I poured myself a glass of bourbon. Sitting at my desk and taking a sip of bourbon, I realized I had been mentally preparing for this moment for years. I knew what I had to do to end my marriage with Sarah. Despite deep feelings of sadness and emptiness, I was determined to protect myself and my children. I called my personal lawyer and instructed him to file for divorce, enforcing the prenuptial agreement. I demanded ownership of the house and automotive facility that I inherited from my grandparents and emphasized my role as the primary caregiver of our children. I requested sole custody of my daughters, which my lawyer assured me wouldn't be problematic. I told him to file citing irreconcilable differences but also prepare a second petition indicating infidelity. Splitting our bank accounts didn't bother me. From the very beginning, my lawyer had advised Sarah and me to keep separate accounts in case my business went bankrupt. Each quarter, we both made equal contributions to the family budget. I kept most of our finances in my name, but I canceled 2 joint credit cards and paid off the balances using our family budget account. After listening to this difficult conversation, I finished my drink and headed to the kitchen. The women's chatter died down when I entered. Sarah noticed my mood and asked if I'd had a bad day. I took my usual place at the far end of the table and nodded in agreement. Then Sarah asked if I wanted to talk about it. Before I could answer, we heard Emma come home from school with her best friend's mom. She greeted us all with a hug and told us about her day. When the conversation turned to Emma's teasing about the boy who liked her, I noticed that everyone except Sarah was fully engaged in the discussion. Sarah looked at me with a worried expression on her face. A moment later, the air was filled with the sound of the school bus stopping in front of the house, and then the front door swung open. Olivia and Sophia burst into the kitchen and were greeted by hugs from Ashley and Brittany. When we were all seated, the three girls were bombarded with questions about their recent adventures. Laughter and conversation filled the room for over an hour until the discussion wound down, signaling the imminent departure of Brittany and Ashley. Sensing this, I decided to take matters into my own hands and announced, "I'm calling a family meeting." Looking at the sisters, I mentioned that our conversation would affect them all and invited them to be present. As soon as they agreed, I got up from my seat to refill their wine glasses and pour myself another sip of bourbon. After putting down the glasses, I offered Sarah another drink, which she declined with a smile. Olivia joked that she had refused wine on Friday afternoon, and we all laughed, waiting for Sarah's explanation. "I may have eaten a little too much in Vegas. I'm working on losing a few pounds," she admitted. Sarah breathed a sigh of relief. "What kind of relief is that?" I asked her. Her face went pale when I reminded her. "You have to avoid alcohol because of the antibiotics." The girls turned to Sarah, worried. "Are you sick, Mom?" Sophia asked. Sarah quickly reassured them. "No, of course not." All eyes turned to me. I took a deep breath to calm down and turned to my daughters. "Your mom just told you a little lie." My voice pierced the air. "Your mom is taking antibiotics for a disease called chlamydia. It's a sexually transmitted infection that she contracted while cheating on me during her Vegas trip with her sisters." Before the girls could react, Sarah calmly interjected, "Girls, your father is not telling the truth. Go to your rooms immediately." The girls hesitated, turning their heads to me for clarification. Having maintained my composure, I calmed them down. "I believe you know that I would never deceive you about something this serious. Everyone, please go to your rooms." Three small heads turned from Sarah to me like a tennis match. "Girls, it's important for you to know that I've contacted Mr. Phillips, who is my lawyer. He'll prepare the divorce papers this weekend and make sure Mom gets a copy next week." Anger flashed in Sarah's eyes. "How could you involve our children in this personal matter?" I met her gaze with an expression of disdain and replied, "The divorce petition will be filed by Alan next Tuesday. In just a few days, our private problem will become public knowledge." Looking at my daughters, I'm preparing for the difficult year ahead. I wanted to be honest and show them respect from the very beginning. "It's important for you to understand that I bear no responsibility for what happened. Your mother is to blame for this chaos. She betrayed us by cheating on us, which led to the breakup of our marriage and the breakup of our family." Watching my daughters' reactions, I expected to see tears and sobs from Olivia and Sophia. I was stunned by my eldest daughter's stoic behavior. With a determined expression on her face, she hesitantly spoke. "Dad, I have something important to tell you, but I'm afraid you'll be upset." Without hesitation, I reached out and took Emma's hand, assuring her, "Getting upset with you is not an option." To my surprise, Emma burst into tears and looked at her sister Olivia, who silently nodded in understanding. The two sisters hugged and cried together. Feeling mixed emotions, I unleashed a barrage of negativity at their mother. "Look at the chaos you've caused. How could you destroy our family like that?" I watched Emma and Olivia closely while Sarah spoke, but her words made no impression on the girls. Instead, Emma composed herself and said, 2 years ago, after Mom returned from Vegas, she was sitting here with Aunt Brittany and Aunt Ashley. We were upstairs in Olivia's bedroom when I heard them talking. They laughed and bragged about who had more men during the trip. They shared some disturbing details that I remember well but prefer not to repeat. "I remember everything too, Dad," Olivia added. "Yes, Emma, I apologize for not telling you." "I'm sorry too, Dad," she said. Emma continued, "We understand that Mom's actions were wrong, but we were afraid to tell you about it." Little Sophia might not have fully understood the situation, but she didn't want to be left out. Moving closer to Olivia, she took her hand and joined them. Addressing all three girls, I assured them that they had nothing to apologize for. It's not your fault that your mother and aunts behaved inappropriately. When the conversation turned to living arrangements after the divorce, Emma expressed a desire to live with me and not with her mother. Showing impressive foresight, Sophia and Olivia nodded in agreement, showing their support. But Sarah expressed her misguided opinion about the custody procedure in a divorce. If your father doesn't stop this nonsense immediately, you'll move in with me. I can assure you of that. The three girls looked worried and turned to me for an answer. I smiled and explained that, as a rule in such situations, the mother gets the right of primary custody. Emma groaned when she noticed I raised my hand and went on to explain that mothers usually get custody because they are often the primary caregivers. Then I asked a few questions to the girls, signaling them to answer silently. Who makes you breakfast every morning? Who prepares lunch for you at school and dinner? Who goes grocery shopping every week? Who is with you every night when your mom was at meetings? Who takes you to the doctor for annual checkups or when you feel unwell? Who coaches your sports teams and volunteers for school trips? Who takes you to dance classes and theater rehearsals? Then, at the end, I asked, can you name at least one thing that your mom does consistently that benefits our family? Emma jumped up from her chair, rounded the table, and threw herself into my waiting arms. Dad, you're the one who cares about us, and you're the best father in the world, Emma said, and her two sisters joined the hug. After a moment, I told the girls to go to their rooms so I could talk to their mother. Each of them kissed me on the cheek and left the kitchen, ignoring Sarah, Brittany, and Ashley. When they left, I reminded them not to eavesdrop and to go to Sophia's room since the situation was very emotional. I smiled when I heard three giggles in a chorus of, "Okay, Dad." I turned to Ashley and Brittany and said, "It looks like you've won." I could see that they didn't want to answer, but I pushed them to do so. "What do you mean?" asked Ashley. "I wanted to have a faithful and loving wife, and you wanted Sarah to be as much a party girl as you are. You got your wish." Ashley groaned in response. "I'm not like that, Marcus," she protested. That I couldn't help but laugh. "You were infected with chlamydia, and this proves you're promiscuous." Brittany intervened, urging us to behave like adults and avoid inappropriate language. She then explained to me that Sarah's behavior during their annual trips was just her way of taking a break from hard work. Brittany jokingly remarked that if she needed a wild partner, she would choose a different man as her spouse. Ashley replied that I had never complained about their behavior in the past. The sisters nodded in agreement. Reflecting on my past actions, I confessed that at that time I was young, greedy, and unattached. After a short pause, I asked the group a question. After meeting Sarah, have I ever accepted your numerous invitations for further intimacy? The silence at the table made it clear that everyone knew the answer. I never wanted a divorce, but you forced my hand. Fortunately, Sarah, I don't need your consent to end our marriage. I have already initiated the divorce process citing irreconcilable differences. If you decide to challenge this, I will seek a court order for you to be tested for sexually transmitted diseases. I have reason to believe that the chlamydia found in your system will confirm your infidelity. I'll expose your cheating to the whole world and show you as a lying and unfaithful person. Hey, sis, Brittany chimed in. We'll leave you alone. Both sisters started to get up but stopped when I spoke, asking them to take out the trash before leaving. They looked puzzled until I gestured at Sarah, telling them to help her pack for a few weeks and then remove her from my house. Sarah tried to delay the divorce by contacting relatives and friends rather than using formal legal procedures, hoping to avoid public disclosure of her personal affairs. Despite the court-ordered consultation, which lasted only one session, it became clear to the consultant that Sarah had no desire to save the marriage. The prenuptial agreement was approved by the court. As a result, Sarah retained assets related to her career, and I kept my automotive business and inherited property. In addition, I was granted primary custody of our children, Emma, Olivia, and Sophia. My two eldest daughters continued to show hostility toward their mother and aunts, but maintained a strong bond with their maternal grandparents. On the other hand, my youngest, Sophia, remained close to her mother and visited her regularly. Unfortunately, after the divorce, Sarah struggled significantly. The news of her divorce spread quickly throughout our community, and the circumstances became known, forcing her to take extended leave from her administrative position. Surprisingly, all three sisters eventually contracted similar infections, proving that consequences have a way of finding people who make poor choices. As for me, I threw myself into being the best father I could be to my daughters. The automotive business continued to thrive, and I found that success meant nothing without the people you love to share it with. My daughters taught me that real wealth isn't measured in dollars or classic cars. It's measured in trust, loyalty, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Emma, Olivia, and Sophia grew up understanding the importance of honesty and commitment. They saw firsthand how betrayal could destroy a family, but they also learned that sometimes the strongest families are forged through adversity. Years later, when Emma asked me if I regretted marrying her mother, I told her the truth. I could never regret a decision that brought you three into my life. Sometimes the most painful experiences teach us the most valuable lessons about what really matters. I never remarried, though there were opportunities. The girls needed stability, and I discovered that being their father was the most rewarding role I'd ever taken on. Pop would have been proud to see how his lessons about hard work, integrity, and treating people right had shaped not just my business success, but my character as a father. Thank you for your viewing. See you next time. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to JK Tells a Story for more tales.